Okay, welcome to everybody viewing this recording. This is the March statewide um, uh, Broadband Ready call happening on Friday, March 15th here at 1 p.m. This is a really kind of information-packed call, so I'm going to do my best to get through everything and leave some time for some questions, as this is the last statewide call before we're going to be doing some final presentations on April 19th, and that will be a 2-hour meeting on April 19th from 1 to 3 p.m. so that we have enough time to get through everybody. And I don't make very big requests often of this ready or kind of hardline requests. My request is to really try to make that April 19th meeting so that you can present and hear everybody else. Because that, I think, the success of how the presentations go and hearing from everybody, I think will really help us be effective going into the next round of Ready and how we want to design it and kind of what's going on there. So a very important plea to complete your projects, which we'll get to, and present them on April 19th, the next time we meet as a state cohort. So really quickly, here's the kind of rundown of the agenda. As I mentioned, please put your name and then your county or region in the chat, as there may be some new people on this call who may not know who the team leads or who the people are in each region. And then additionally, if I have colleagues on the call, there's a form that we're asking everybody to fill out, everyone that we kind of engage with in types of different programming. You can find that at bit.ly, so bit.ly/IOB partner. It's just kind of a contact intake form that is going to go a long way to making sure that you don't get redundant emails and that we just have a good understanding of where people are and kind of what they're up to. We're going to dive into the Ready program and timelines. The majority of this call will be about the final presentations. I do want to spend a little bit of time about the BEAD mapping challenge, as it's wrapping up at least this window of challenge opportunity. And I'll go into what's next regarding the rebuttal phase and what that might mean for you all. And then also talking about the future of Ready and leaving some time for general discussions. As always, really quickly, what is the Ready program? Again, for anybody new here, it stands for Broadband Regional Engagement for Adoption and Digital Equity. And I think it should be clear now how we kind of go about that with these digital equity projects and this regional collaboration. But this is kind of the work of kind of creating digital inclusion ecosystems through regional collaboration, which may sound academic, but that's okay, given this audience is mostly people associated with higher education institutions. The idea is using the strengths and the resources from those academic institutions to reach out to the community, both their immediate community and kind of the larger region as a whole. This program, I think, is going to be really important going into next year because to take a note from Matt, this is really one of the most important years, if not the most important in Illinois' history, at least these string of years. We're talking about the $1 billion of infrastructure for the BEAD program. We're talking about, tens of millions of dollars with the Digital Equity Act. Already, lots of dollars have been flowing out of the door from the Office of Broadband, both in the Connect Illinois infrastructure grants and the Digital Equity Capacity Kickstarter, the DEC program. So making sure that money is kind of used responsibly, is effective, and kind of continues the momentum of this work, really, I think, is the main goal of the office and the Illinois Broadband Lab. And so the Ready program, I think, plays a key part in all of that, as we'll kind of see. In case you are new and you're wondering, like, kind of, you've never seen this map before, this is how the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity divides the state around economic regions. So that is what Ready is using, and each location has a higher education institution leading the efforts. And I think our goal is really to hit the ground running, if we can, in July of 2025, to make sure that all regions are participating as best as possible. And therefore all counties are kind of represented and have a sort of avenue to go to when it comes to this important digital equity work. So if you're curious, what does the Ready program look like in its current state? It's mostly these types of meetings, as well as regional monthly meetings, digital equity impact projects that all of you are working on, that we'll be reporting on next month, and then this kind of ongoing regional digital equity coalition building, which has taken place in a variety of forms. Sometimes it's local meetings in each region. Sometimes it's our listening tour, but just sort of different gathering opportunities to discuss this important work and kind of grow the field itself. So looking at the meeting calendar going ahead, the main thing to note is that highlighted piece. So the statewide calls happen the third Fridays of the month, usually from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. April 19th is going to be a special meeting. It's going to be 2 hours so that we have enough time to make sure that we can hear from everybody that is working on their kind of final presentations for the work that they've been doing, what they hope to accomplish, and everything else. So those are there. If you want to look at the regional meeting times, everybody that's on this call, if you have access to look at the screen, just kind of make a note, and if you can multitask, check your calendars to make sure that it's on your calendars and that it's accurate. Generally speaking, everybody has their meeting in the first 2 weeks of the month at some point. That will be the opportunity, at least talking about this regional meeting in April, for me to answer particular questions you might have around your final presentation. Depending at the speed of which you move, you may have a rough draft or have it completed at that point. So if you'd want to sort of use that time as like a group meeting on it to review things or add kind of final details, that is what I would recommend for your April regional meeting. So again, if anything looks odd or off, please email me and just kind of double check that it's on your calendar, because I do want to make sure that we meet with everybody prior to the April 19th call. You've seen this screen before. I just wanted to kind of show it again to kind of mark our progress of what has been going on, what's going on currently, and where we're headed. So generally speaking, everybody has kind of gotten their teams together, this is months ago, and filled out the paperwork and all that sort of thing. Recently, with all your meeting check-ins, it sounds like everything's going pretty well. Maybe that's not the case with teams, but you're doing a good job hiding it, because it seems like every check-in that I've been a part of over the last 2 weeks, everybody seems to be indicating that their projects are going well, they're meeting with people, they have a good sense of kind of what they should be doing. So if that doesn't match your experience, please email me and we'll kind of talk about it at our April meeting. Okay, so looking ahead, we are kind of in the final stretch ultimately of this fiscal year of the Ready program. So this is a very important slide for people to just make sure it aligns with their understanding of what's going on. So the regional meeting agenda items are on the left, and the statewide Ready schedule, meaning these kind of meetings, are on the right. So as I mentioned, April's going to be about the check-in and the final presentations. And then April 19th is really the sort of like final exam, final project day. I'm aiming for groups to shoot for 10 to 15 minutes, which is not a lot of time, I think, to talk about their projects. But if that's what we're shooting for, if we have 8 or so regions presenting on April 19th. We'll talk about the final presentations in a little bit, so I don't want to linger on that too long. May, I know, is often a very busy time for people that work in academia because of commencement, or if you are teaching any classes, it's often very, very busy of just wrapping those types of things up. So I'm trying to keep it relatively light to respect that sort of workload. But I want to officially announce here, I know I've talked about it before, but it is now solidified that May 8th through 10th, there is the Connect Illinois Summit in Chicago. So that's going to be happening at the Sheridan Grand downtown. More information will quite literally be published about it at the conclusion of this meeting in the afternoon. But it is May 8th through 10th. we would love to have a broadband ready panel actually talk about your experiences with the program, maybe having a larger theme about incorporating universities into the work of digital equity. Really, I think maybe Matt and others might not agree. To me, the sky's the limit about how we want to engage with people participating in the Ready program at this summit. So that's part of the reason why the final projects are due April 19th, is so that we can kind of really get a good sense of how to fine tune and who to invite more specifically to present at the May summit based on who's available and other factors. So please put that on your calendar and come if you can. We would love to get as many people as possible because I do think it's going to be a really tremendous opportunity to check in with other people across the state on the very real things that you all are working on, whether it's infrastructure kind of things or digital literacy programs or engaging with certain digital equity partners. That's going to be the space to connect with folks. We're working with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. So if anybody on this call has gone to Net Inclusion or been associated with NDIA, you know that they do really fantastic work. So I think it's going to be a really exciting time. There's also going to be a research component at the end of the conference. So if that also is kind of interest to you all, keep that in mind. There are different ways to engage with this summit. So just for now, mark it on your calendar and stay tuned to future communications that go into more detail about it. May 17th, we have a statewide ready call. I don't quite know what the participation level will be and what our energy levels are going to be after the conference, but really, if everything goes according to plan, May and June, I think, is really going to be about taking stock of what went well over the past year and kind of planning ahead for a new cohort starting in July. So May and June is really about carrying through momentum, maybe momentum that comes from the Connect Illinois Summit and connecting with different folks, as well as some of the evaluation forms and others that we're going to ask you to complete to get your well-earned feedback, I think, around how the program can best serve you, what would be helpful, all that sort of thing. So that's coming basically summer 2024. And then ideally launching a really, really well-organized, structured, excited, energetic group come July 2024. Okay, on to the Broadband Ready program kind of final summit, or sorry, Broadband Ready program final presentations. And I also just want to put in a quick request of any of my colleagues that are on the call. If someone has an urgent question, rather than me monitoring the chat, feel free to interrupt me and we can kind of answer those questions in real time as needed. So you may have seen this slide before. This is kind of what I put on in February. And so now I'm actually going to go through a little bit about what it is that I'm looking for and kind of other people associated with Ready, what would be helpful. And so I'm going to try to walk the balance of providing as much suggestions of what we would like to see in these presentations, while also respecting and encouraging people to really be creative with how they tell their stories and how they kind of present this information. A goal, I think, would maybe to be put many of these, if not all of these presentations on the Illinois Broadband Lab website to help kind of communicate to people what it is that you all are doing, kind of help grow the program and that sort of thing. So just keep in mind, technically, this is a closed sort of Ready report, but we have aspirations to have it be open and public and really just kind of, extend the work that you all are doing. So after this, I'm going to be, and it's included in this presentation, sharing links to what is now this presentation, which is the template presentation for people. It's extremely bare and blank, again, because I want folks to be as creative as possible, but I'm just going to go through kind of outline suggestions that will also be made available in a Word document to help kind of guide you and your team as you start organizing the work that you've been doing, kind of seeing what narratives emerge and how you want to kind of tell the story of what you've been doing. So obviously we want to kind of have your region in the PIs listed. We'd like you to kind of say what your region is, list the counties, your ready team and sectors engaged with. Some teams I think had very solid rosters right out the gate. Others, it's been a little bit of a kind of mix and match situation, sometimes very small, sometimes relatively loose. My attitude is to just kind of be honest. There's not really an advantage, I think, of inaccurately claiming certain people are part of your roster team or something, or your ready team, if they, don't really participate in some way. This isn't a hard line, sort of like graded final project in the sense of the points get totaled up and there's a rubric and that sort of thing. It's really, I think, just to get a snapshot of what's happening, because it's not necessarily that having a small team is not doing a good job. I think it's just a matter of like what might need to change, if anything, if that is the case. Maybe a team is too large, those sorts of things. So putting that information in there, as well as I think it's really helpful to just in your own words kind of communicate your region. If you're not at the point that you feel like you have regional awareness or scope of your project, that's also okay. You can say, hey, this is the university, this is the immediate surrounding community of a university, and these are who we are working with. We still want a general regional breakdown, but again, it's don't be dishonest in the claim of like, oh, we have this presence in this entire every county in
To
our
be safe,
region
Excel.
is kind
Yeah.
of going this. So and then additionally, there are data sources. They're going to be listed at an appendix at the end and following this, but I just try to kind of include them everywhere as possible. Those are made by some of our fantastic fellows with the Illinois Office of Broadband and Illinois Broadband Lab. I displayed some of those in February, so I'm not going to go into detail with those now, but the goal is to get those. They're in a way, they're sort of in beta right now. So I put them in there because I would love it for everybody in the Ready program to use them. There's demographic information around covered populations in each county from the Digital Equity Act. There's a dashboard on household income in relationship to connectivity, as well as internet use in every county. So in part of the spirit of being a lab, the Illinois Broadband Lab is very excited to get these dashboards up on the website and kind of be usable for people, so they can kind of, again, use data to make informed decisions around funding and who to target and how to kind of increase digital equity that way. And also to bring more people into the fold with digital equity. There's a lot of policymakers that might not be a top issue for them. There might be a lot of sectors or areas or large institutions in your community, such as hospitals or banks, or other schools and that sort of thing that maybe don't really quite realize this world of digital equity. So just kind of increasing the space there, I think, is of utmost importance, and we think the dashboards can help with that. Okay, I mentioned I think narratives are often the best way that people retain information and kind of sort through information and get a good understanding. And so that's why I'm leaning heavily into that framework for this presentation. So all of these are kind of guiding or suggestion questions. They are available in a worksheet that I'll provide later, but they're also in this PowerPoint form of just kind of getting at, what are some of the unique challenges and some of these kind of personal narratives of like, I think it's very interesting if you are able to explain why you got involved in this Ready program, why the issue of digital equity is something that in your role as maybe it's an administrator of a university or a professor, why that matters to you. Again, kind of goes to that theme of bringing more people into the fold. And I'm honestly very curious around why people got involved. I think with the hurried start to this program and everything else, a lot of those more personal details get lost in the fold and kind of like the frantic timelines of grant dollars and all these other things. But my view is that this is an incredibly important element of our society is making sure people are connected, that they can participate in democracy, have access to healthcare, have access to education. So it's vitally important, all the work we're doing, and hearing about people's personal narratives, I think, goes a really, really long way in inspiring this type of work and kind of creating new ideas and energy around trying to move the needle on this problem that, quite frankly, I think should have been solved, or not solved, but at least been reduced a lot long ago, or a long time ago. But we're making our projects. Obviously, talking about what you've been doing is kind of the core. So again, my preference is to just have you be honest here. It's only helpful, I think, to you and us to get that sort of accuracy as what's working, what's not working, as we sort of retool the program for next year. But obviously, it is a grant program. These are dollars going to you all to kind of initiate these sorts of things. And so, getting a sense of where those dollars were used or where they were not used, and why, different things and different works that people are doing. And just note that this portion of it can take a little bit of time, a little bit of data gathering, making sure people are communicating and understanding. So I would suggest starting, like any teacher on any sort of school assignment, is always beneficial, I think, to start earlier than you think. Even though, yes, we are more than a month out from these final presentations. Getting all of this information from people about the work that you've been doing, I think, is really important. And so it's likewise just as important to start early, because those sorts of efforts can take time. Okay. Similarly with regional collaboration, these are all kind of suggested questions to kind of get you thinking about what it is that you have been doing, any reasons why it's been hard to reach certain areas, maybe some surprising successes over partnerships that you made that were really fruitful. This portion of it will be hugely beneficial to the Broadband Lab and the Office of Broadband, as we have now staffed up. We have more team members on board, specific community engagement managers. And so learning from you all about what worked and what didn't work, I think, will help them in their efforts going forward to kind of really basically just keep scaling this work. And then same with the LFA fellows and grad assistants. I'm going to give a sneak peek of what I was going to talk about later in the presentation, but certainly a challenge early on in this program was placement of fellows with the READY program. There were geographical constraints, economic constraints, timeline issues. And so I think everybody has been doing, really the best they can. I want to give a shout out to Anita. I don't know if you're on the call right now. I don't want to mess up my presentation right now to check, but just really, really doing a good job of just being that how do I say? I don't want to say eye in the storm, but that's the metaphor. A calming presence amidst a lot of chaos of timelines. Certainly, the AC program wind down is an incredibly painful curveball in all of this. And so, getting a structure in place for the next Ready program is really, I think, both Anita and I, we have a strong incentive to do that, because this work takes time and energy and people. And so if you can kind of work with people that are willing to take not high paying opportunities to do this work, I think is really special and should be kind of noted and remarked upon. And so again, here, I just want folks to be honest around your experience with either LFA fellows or grad assistants, what they've been up to. If it's something that you have more sensitive or, issues with, or challenges that you've had, there will be an evaluation, a more confidential evaluation form, as I mentioned, in May and June, when we actually kind of get into the details of retooling things. So you don't feel like you need to air everything out here, but I do want to just kind of make sure that that piece is kind of elevated and given their just elevation for this kind of thing. More to say on that later on. And then finally, kind of a looking ahead. What do you want to see with your program? How do you want it to grow? what would be useful. Similarly with regional collaboration, how you can kind of go about that in the future, I think is what we're looking for. As promised, an appendix of data sources. So we would love if you all would just take a look at some of those dashboards and just kind of log your experiences with them. We would love your feedback before we sort of make it super public and really kind of promote it. We want to kind of have you all as digital equity practitioners use it and kind of see how it may be helpful in terms of getting a snapshot of your county. Just as a kind of food for thought, there have been some teams that are really focused on trying to increase the capacity of people in their region to, say, submit grant funds, either for digital equity projects or even broadband infrastructure. Having accurate data, I think, goes a long way with any of those types of applications. And so it would be kind of a dream scenario in our eyes if people get put into the fold through these dashboards. They have an entryway of kind of maybe being surprised by what some of the data shows, county to county around different digital inequities. And they use that as evidence for going after different resources or grant dollars in particular applications. Many of you have been working hard with the BEAD program, which I say absolutely that counts, I think, as ready work, so long as it's kind of coordinated in the same manner. And so as such, the BEAD landing page is there, as well as the challenge map. You can find kind of, there'll be more public information around the challenges when they actually get posted of where they were, but you can certainly kind of use that as part of your narrative to say, we are a very unconnected area. There's a lot of people doing connectivity challenges here and the like. Similarly, there's a low-cost internet plans in Illinois that we're going to be working on making more accessible. Right now, it's kind of this spreadsheet, but that's available, as well as an ACP program enrollment performance tool. So that's here. You can follow up with me with any questions. I displayed some of these last time, so I'm not going to go into detail, but just again to kind of spark maybe how you all might be approaching the narratives of your final projects. This is one of the dashboards that's showing broadband availability by county, looking at underserved and unserved in green and yellow across the state. And you can obviously kind of zoom in and get a sense of where broadband serviceable locations are. Likewise, some of you might exist in places in which generally there's relatively good connections at the residential level, but there's still glaring disparities when it comes to community anchor institutions, so things like schools and hospitals and government buildings. So just taking a look at that, these two maps, as well as multi-dwelling units, can kind of be another tool in the toolbox to describe the digital inequities in your regions that are available to everyone. Okay, as I said, in addition to that PowerPoint template that will be available and is available right there at go.uillinois.edu/ready/FY24 final presentation, there's a Word version of these types of questions. So I strongly encourage and dare say demand that each team fill out this worksheet. It doesn't have to be, complete, multiple sentences on everything, but just a kind of, at the very least, a skeletal filling out of these different things will help the IBL and IOB team in evaluating the READY program. And then I think it will really help you as you kind of put everything in there. I think certain narratives and ideas will probably foster and grow through that process, and that can help shape your final presentation. So these slides will be made available. So the links are there. You can access the dashboards that I talked about, as well as this worksheet and the accompanying PowerPoint template at that site. I'm going to pause here. Are there any immediate questions that people have, comments, ideas around these final presentations that I can immediately answer? Because to me, this is the focus for you all for the next month. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. This isn't a super talkative group, much to my surprise, to be honest. So that's something I'm taking. We might move the calls from Friday, the statewide calls from Fridays. If that's just kind of my understanding, the history of the program, and might not be the best day.
Robbie, we just have a request that you can share the doc, which I know
Yes,
you will. Yeah.
yes, I will absolutely share the doc. It's in a box folder found at that website, and it will be in the follow-up email accompanying this recording and other things today. But if people can access that, you'll click that and go there. go.uillinois.edu/ready fiscal year 20 final presentation. You'll see the PowerPoint and Word doc in there. And then the idea is you would download that, fill it out, email it to me. I'll also provide an email to upload it actually to a box folder as well. So multiple avenues to get that information over to me.
Hey, Robbie and everybody, this is Matt. First of all, sorry for the singing and serenading earlier. I get my youngest to his nap time every day, and I try to be done by 1 o'clock. And today it ran 5 minutes over. So in any event, apologies for that. Just wanted to reiterate the message that Robbie's sharing today. We're really excited about a few things. I mean, just one of the more inspiring things that I've been part of the last 4.5 years in this job is listening to these ready report outs every year. It's just incredible work. We love to hear it, and it really inspires me. And it gets us thinking about how we design our programming and where we can double down on investments. And so that April 18th, even if it's not a final presentation per se, and you're wrapping up all your projects, loose ends, what you're able to share with us that day really makes it pop and makes this work come to life for us. And so thank you for leaning into that and kind of putting your best foot forward. Secondly, that statewide summit that we're co-hosting through our University of Illinois Broadband Lab and the National Digital Inclusion Alliance is a really incredible opportunity for folks throughout Illinois, as Robbie said, to hear what each other is doing, but also for us to hear from neighboring states. We expect there will be hundreds of people. This event is going to sell out, and we're going to have folks from all over the country. And we just really look forward to having that environment where we're able to learn from each other. The timing could not be better because the Digital Equity Act notice of funding opportunity will be posted at the federal level. We'll be starting our program design for how the state notice of funding opportunity to make use of that 35 million plus in digital equity dollars is going to come together. And so we want your ideas. We want to help make that program design process, I guess, based upon, our lived experience doing this work the last several years. At the same time, we have the BEAD program that's going to be poised to launch in Illinois. And so if you're more interested in broadband deployment and thinking about the intersection of expanding networks and access with affordability and use, this is the place for you. And so we've got 2 half-day workshops and then a full day. And Lieutenant Governor, and other dignitaries are expected to be there. But I think the real value is going to be sharing our stories with them, but also connecting amongst ourselves and others in this field. And so a piece that I would finally emphasize here is that research component. We want to invest in this and make sure that in Illinois, we're producing a level of inquiry that's commensurate with the capital investment that we've undertaken. And so as Robbie had mentioned earlier, we call it the lab for a reason. And so we look forward to ramping up significantly in the months and years ahead the investment that we're making in research, in digital equity and broadband deployment. Even though the BEAD program is great, digital equity investments are going to have to be ongoing if we expect to keep the gaps shrunk once we identify them and shrink them. And likewise, on the deployment side, the BEAD funding is great, but there's going to be problems for deployment and access beyond the BEAD program. And so we want to be thinking about this on the front end. Anything that you're able to bring to the table in terms of students or peers or research colleagues or your own interests, we'd love to hear it. And so the conversation doesn't begin or end at this May summit, but nonetheless, it's an opportunity for us to springboard into what is next. And so I will not filibuster your Friday afternoon ready call, but nonetheless, really excited about where this program is headed. And just thank you all for your energy and what you bring to this. So without further ado, I will mute and spare you a second serenade. So thank you.
No, thank you, Matt. I definitely appreciate that. That was a great emphasis on a lot of key points around other things going on besides the Ready program. And so that May 8th through 10th, if you can make it there, to echo what Matt's saying, I think it's tremendous. It would be tremendously beneficial for all parties involved. Okay. Let's get back to it. So going
Robbie, I
into,
have something to
oh,
add,
yes,
or is this the
absolutely.
right time? So
Sure.
great sharing of all these exciting events and activities that are happening this year. My question is, with so much happening across the state in these events in May, we've been working with you from the beginning with Latinx digital leaders now across the state, and really have evolved our services and our resources to be that trusted partner, not only with groups at the leadership, but also with community stakeholders who often do not feel represented or their voices heard. So my question is, what role do you see of organizations like Latinx Digital Leaders Now, who are, trusted advisors with our technical expertise, but also in our community with boots on the ground, with our own experiences as immigrants, with language challenges, with trust issues that they've been having in the past with government, and even abuses from companies on either on internet or many other services. That's why they don't show up many times. So, what role do you see for us to help to draw interest, attention, engagement at these events? I'd like to just know from your perspective or any others.
Thank you, Caroline, for that question. I think at the core, where my mind goes is I would really love to see the Ready program be one that's about, sort of getting outside of the university, obviously using the resources of the university. And so thinking ahead to the next year, certain Ready teams, I think, have done a great job of this, but I think it's something we're going to sort of push the accelerator on a little bit more, which is actually developing strong partnerships with community-based organizations in your respective region. And so that might mean an organization like Latinx DLN that I know has a presence at a variety of places around the state, but I think kind of working on a specific digital equity impact project, ideally in partnership with a community-based organization to get at the very real benefits, I think, that you outlined around kind of trust and augmenting the work that's going on outside the kind of university walls. That I think is the ideal. And so that part of that I think speaks to the more of the planning process that's going to be going on this summer in kind of after the summit and those events in May about, when we think about the projects that these universities and others are getting, kind of like where does that connection point make sense with what they're trying to do and what these different community-based organizations are doing on the ground. Yeah, and kind of just making those strong partnerships. It's really about, that's to me what kind of regional collaboration is all about, and sort of connecting the campus to outside the campus to outside the county and beyond. I hope that's helpful, because yeah, that gets to also this screen that I just wanted to get to, which is, okay, what is the shape, what is kind of shaping up to be the next fiscal year 25 of Ready, of what we're looking at. And so that last piece down in the, I've often described it as kind of being a two-pronged project in the main things around a digital equity impact project and then regional collaboration. I want to elevate the LFA fellows if we are able to kind of continue that program in the same way, as well as kind of expand a little bit more on the university's capacity, which is grad assistance, to kind of elevate that to be a stronger kind of, so that it becomes more of a three-pronged piece for this program. Sometimes those will all work together and kind of intermingle in the sense of an LFA fellow might be working on a specific digital equity impact project that the university is partnering with a community-based organization on. That's, again, kind of the ideal. Each community and region is going to be different and needs to adjust accordingly. But they kind of move together that way. And so for the university representatives on this call, we've found, meaning Anita and I and other people working on this program, it's often smoother to do grad assistance, just given the university structure. So we want to kind of be more upfront and clear about that in the sort of budget templates that we are envisioning for July 25, rather than a sort of like, here's a grant and let's kind of figure out this digital equity project piece. I think we're going to be doing a little bit more of a menu option around, this is our kind of suggested designation for how funds get used. And we would like grad assistance to be a portion of that, and potentially LFA fellows. If the universities themselves don't feel like they have the capacity to be a host organization, then Carolyn, going to your point, partnering with an organization that could then be the host site for an LFA fellow through funds from the READY program is what we're aiming for.
That helps a lot. A couple points also, you also earlier asked about some comments from us as far as having worked with you for over the years. I think the things to highlight and to give kudos to Matt and the team is, we started getting involved since the initial Illinois Connected Community Grants, a couple of years ago, where we launched a program in Summit, Illinois, and a lot of things that we learned and brought in stakeholders across the community, from the mayor's office, the school districts, business community, library, and so forth. And then recently with the DEC grant that we did, we're fortunate and we're thankful for. It was very small, but it does give us enough for building those partners. So we do have partnerships with local based organizations in Southwest region, with Connie, Hoyleton organization, who does a lot of work in that region, in the Southwest by St. Louis. And so they're poised, they're ready, they're in collaboration with us and with Lionel, identifying those unique needs of Latinos and others that are underrepresented. The same thing in Effingham, where we've started those partners with the Effingham Public Library in Central Illinois. And of course, in the northern part, where the hometown of Summit, in the southwest part, working with Alicia and others. So my question on that is the DEC used? Can the DEC be used for solidifying those partnerships and building those plans that we initially started, but we just don't have the bandwidth or the resources to, make them stronger and truly understand the needs?
Yeah, great question. And we're kind of having these dialogues behind the scenes, kind of internally. I'm going to try to be quick just for the sake of time before we have to go through the presentation. What I will say is this: just earlier this week, Ling Lu from the Illinois Office of Broadband started the Community of Practice group for DEC award winners. And so one of the kind of growth aspects for these next couple months is, right now, READY is kind of a catch-all for a lot of the different regional engagement work, and sometimes it's not quite the right fit for what people are doing. I don't like the term silo, but that's what we're using right now. For the coming months and kind of looking at the next year, I think we're going to be looking at also, in addition, like READY is kind of like an option. It's there for people to kind of join if it makes sense, but also sort of looking at silos around broadband breakthrough, around the DEC grant and digital equity capacity Kickstarter grant. Because the reality is the geographic borders don't matter as much for some people in terms of what would be most beneficial for them, like who they should be talking to and collaborating with. If someone's running an identical program, 8 counties north of you that's in a different READY region, the READY program might not necessarily be the spot to be spending your time and doing that sort of work, versus if the Illinois Broadband Lab kind of takes this silo approach, they can kind of say, like these people are doing similar things, let's make sure that they're talking to one another and going that way. And so in some sense, the DEC program will be maybe something to be used in parallel with the READY program or work with a READY team. But also DEC award winners will also be kind of communicating with one another and kind of determining the best collaboration with that point. So it is a gray area right now, and I don't want to kind of dwell too much on it, but I think there are discussions being had about kind of how best to make sure people are engaged at the appropriate level for what they're trying to do. And not to swing it back to the thing, but filling out that bit.ly link, bit.ly/IOB partner is the first step that I think you can do just to make sure that you're plugged into a channel that's most effective to you. But this is a
Great.
great question. This came up at the West Central call earlier this week. So if anyone's on there, because there are digital equity practitioners that maybe have something to gain from participating directly with Ready in their region, but probably have more to gain by connecting with someone doing similar work somewhere else. So
Thank you,
making those
Robbie.
connections happen, I think, is our priority. Okay, thank you. This has been really helpful, and I think hopefully clarifying to people on this call with some of this. This is now going to just be a quick speed run because I do want to kind of end 5 minutes early just for general questions that people have. I can stop the recording and that sort of thing. So these last 5 minutes are really just going to be a speed run of quick updates happening outside of the Ready program. So many people might be on here with questions about BEAD. The biggest thing I can say is just if Shabika's on here, you can direct message her because that's really the best approach. I think Devin and Shabika, I think, have been fantastic at answering questions quickly and effectively that people have around the BEAD program. So if you are participating in the challenge process or you have questions, I would say email or message Devin or Shabika right now. If you want to stay engaged in the process, because it's not over once the challenge window closes on the 18th. That's just sort of a phase of this entire process. So again, dceo.illinois.gov/BEAD challenge. It will always be the best space to go to for all updated information and helpful guides. To just provide a quick overview of where people sit right now. So we are in an open challenge process that is ending on Monday. So this is really kind of it when it comes to getting in challenges to the BEAD map to just try to make it as accurate as possible. Pretty soon, the rebuttal and adjudication period will start. If you want to get into the nuts and bolts in that, I recommend reading the initial proposal volume 1 and 2. It goes into detail about what this is going to look like. But for you all on this call, I would just say stay updated and informed through the newsletter and checking that website, and honestly participating in the Wednesday lunch and learn webinars that Devin helps lead. That's going to be your best way to have an avenue to ask questions and to get up-to-date information. But basically, the challenge process window will close. Certain procedures will happen where automatic kind of challenges and that sort of thing will happen. And so you will all see a sort of updated map on where the challenges are and what's available to kind of send any sort of rebuttal information, because that's the next thing that often comes up is, well, what if an internet service provider inaccurately reports about my region? What is the sort of recourse that I have? And so that is all part of the pre-rebuttal and rebuttal portion that's going to be happening. So that's what the Office of Broadband is going to be working on, in addition to summit planning and deck review, merit review process, and Connect Illinois processes and everything. There's a lot on their plate, but that's what's going to be happening over the next several weeks. So just stay up to date as best as possible with that information. Yeah, and everything that you would want is at that dceo.illinois.gov/BEAD challenge, including how to register for those things on Wednesday. There's also one-pagers and that sort of thing. So if you get very quick questions from anybody, you can also basically just forward that information and we can kind of help answer those questions. If you have BEAD questions, please put them in the chat or save them for the last 5 minutes, and we'll try to kind of get those answered as quickly as possible. Also, to just make sure people are aware of is the digital equity dollars. We're basically kind of waiting on approval for our plan, and we'll provide updates when that funding becomes available or when we get any type of information about that. But going back to the conversation I had earlier around regional collaboration and talking, answering Carolyn's question, that's also going to be a component of regional collaboration and Ready, is potentially helping different organizations if they want to seek out some of these digital equity dollars, connecting deck winners and digital equity grant winners, whatever we're going to be calling that, to each other to kind of work on that stuff together. So these are sort of concurrent programs that are going to be happening all over the next year, which goes back to, this is, ripped directly from the presentation on the state's digital equity plan. And so we spent so much time gathering feedback, doing the reunion tour, reading through comments and all these sorts of things. And so now the actual sort of implementation process comes into play. So not to go into detail, but that's another thing the Office of Broadband and Illinois Broadband Lab are going to be working on in the next several months, if not sooner, actually, than that, is sort of getting a team together to figure out, going through this implementation process. And so you may be getting notified about participating in that process sooner rather than later, but I just wanted to let you know that it's going to be occurring, and just to remind folks that the state digital equity plan, when looking at the core activities, is incredibly aligned with the READY program. So no matter what, as the state's digital equity plan begins its implementation, there will certainly be relevance for the READY program and what they're trying to do going forward. Most of you should be aware, but if not, there are now 2 cohorts going on with Broadband Breakthrough, which is the rural county program focused on expanding broadband and kind of thinking about it from like more of an ag tech perspective. And so we're really, really pleased by the county involvement with that. There may be some new members here with that. When we think about those silos or that regional collaboration, that's certainly something we're going to be thinking about over the next few months as more counties basically get to the point that they feel eligible to apply for funds, have conversations with providers and all that sort of thing. So some READY teams, I think, are leaning into the Broadband Breakthrough Program participants, and some are not, and that's okay. Again, it's all just kind of about plugging people into the right channels that's most effective for them. But just know that, this program, I think, is kind of at its peak right now. And so making sure that there are avenues for these counties that now maybe have increased broadband or looking to get into the digital equity space a little bit more diligently, plugging them into the right spaces is going to be good. So that's another thing on the agenda, more for kind of May and June coming up. I was going to go into this for the sake of time. I'm not, except to say the ACP wind down has begun. It's stopped accepting. There's a freeze on that program. We can discuss that more after this closes out soon. If people have questions about that, I know that that's kind of an ongoing thing. I'm active on the NDIA listserv, and there's a lot of questions and things going on with that, so we can share that. But I just wanted to get to this final announcements page before I end. Reminder, the biggest thing for you all is this April 19th final presentation day. We'll talk about it at your April thing. If not, reviewing things, I will email out all the materials and the suggestions for it, but this is sort of the go time for showing your work, talking about your work, inspiring others, really doing an evaluation of everything that's been going on over the past year. So that's the main thing. The Connect Illinois Summit is happening in May 8th through 10th, and all of that information will be live very soon at the website. I saw some of that in the chat, so just stay engaged with that. Recommend bookmarking the BEAD thing and signing up for webinars. DEC, the merit review team, is active. They're looking at applications, so there'll be announcements around that coming up. And as always, just to stay on top of these things, the Illinois Broadband Connections newsletter is the place to go. Everybody hopefully is signed up for that, but if not, do that or email me. And then lastly, again, as a reminder, just try to fill out that form, bit.ly/iob/partner. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the recording, but stay on for anybody that might want to linger around for any questions. Appreciate it.